What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to install a new top on the MG, and during my research on how to do this I realized there's really no good videos for it, so we're going to film the process and put that up for view, and maybe it'll be able to help other people out later down the line. Now, even though there's no good videos, there is an excellent write-up on mgexp.com, and I'm going to be loosely following that guide on how to install a new top. So I will post the link in the description below for your review. I highly recommend that you go to that and review it before trying to install a new top. It's very detailed, it's got some pictures, it's overall an excellent write-up, and the people on that forum are wonderful. If you have any questions or need any help with your MG, check them out if you haven't already been there. Now, I am not going to follow that guide 100% to the T. I'm going to make a few changes, and that is only because I'm going to do this on my own, and I really believe if you do it how they say in that write-up, you're going to need 2, maybe even 3 people to get everything lined up and glued down right. So I'm going to try to improvise a little bit. Hopefully I don't screw it up. But we'll see. So I have already removed my old top, and I did not film that because it's really a pretty straightforward process. So I can kind of explain that a little bit. So we'll walk over and take a closer look at the top frame so we can explain the removal process. Your top is really only attached to this frame in 2 places, maybe only one. It's definitely going to be attached to this header rail here, which is the frontmost part of your frame that meets the top of the window. Your top gets stretched, glued all the way across this header rail with contact cement, and then it gets wrapped around this leading edge, and it's also glued most likely there. Then you have an aluminum retaining strip that lays over top of the material and gets pop riveted down, or maybe screwed depending on the last top that was installed, but most likely it's going to be pop riveted. And then your rubber seal that meets up to the window frame slides into that aluminum retaining strip. Okay, so the only other place that that top might be attached to the frame is back here on this rearmost bow, and this is the bow that folds up and down. There's going to be a couple strips of cloth hanging down from the inside of your top that's supposed to be glued around that. I think a lot of people don't attach that. I know mine was not attached. I've read where people don't attach them. I am going to be most likely attaching my new top around that, and I'll explain why once we get to that point. So if your top is attached to that bow, you need to get inside your car and just cut that material loose from that bow. Then you're going to go ahead and just fold your top down, just like you would normally fold it down to stow. And when you do that, it's going to wind up having, this inside edge facing upward, so you'll be able to see that rubber seal. So if your seal and your aluminum retaining strip is in good shape, then maybe you want to reuse them because your top is probably not going to come with those. So be gentle when you remove them. The seal should slide in and out of that aluminum strip, and the strip should be reusable depending on the condition and how delicate you are with it when you remove it. My stuff was all in bad shape, so I didn't even try to be delicate. I just ripped the rubber seal off. That exposes your pop rivets or screws. I think it's a 3/16 drill bit, but I can't remember for sure. The write-up from MGEXP tells you what size drill bit is best to use, but you just drill those pop rivets out. Once you drill out the pop rivets, you are going to have on the underside of each corner here, you're going to have these little plastic blocks that are held on with 2 screws over top of your material. Take those off on either end. Then you can peel the material up, like from underneath up to here. Now it's also going to be glued all the way across this, but remember your top is laying in the back of your car folded down. So this is going to be on the underside. So once you peel that material off and you get, you've got your screws and everything off, then you can go ahead and raise your top back up. That'll expose this. You can peel that material all the way off. And then you go to the back side of the top. You've got these two lips, these two latches that the top slides under. There's a metal bar, and it's actually this bar here. This bar slides into the back of the top, into the material, and then when you put your top on, this slides under that. So you need to save this bar. You're not going to get a new bar. So you'll slide that out of the top material, set that aside, and then you can take that old top and just throw it in the garbage. You don't need it anymore. Now, my top frame was not in the best of condition. I mean, it was fully functional, but it just was a little worse for wear. So I did clean it all up and painted it with some black Rust-Oleum. I just brush painted it, and it looks pretty good for what it is. And it's not a show car. It's a fair weather daily driver. So I cleaned it up, then I coated it with some rust reformer. I might have that sitting, well, I don't really have it easily accessible, but you can buy Rust-Oleum branded rust reformer that you can paint on with a brush. So I bought some of that. I coated everything with that after I sanded it and cleaned it up. Let that cure, and then I painted it, brush painted it with some black high gloss Rust-Oleum. I just had a quart of that and didn't need anywhere near a quart, but it's just something I had on the shelf already. So I did also remove my header rail completely, and you can see that's held on with 3 screws on either side. So you can take those total of 6 screws out. Your header rail will come off of the rest of this frame, and then you can clean that off of the car, because that's going to be covered in old contact cement. So I used Goo Gone, wiped it down to soften all that contact cement. Then I went over it with a putty knife and a wire wheel chucked into a drill, sanded it down, cleaned it all up with rubbing alcohol, painted it, used a rust reformer. That I did just spray paint since it was off the car. But I used a rust reformer, primer, black Rust-Oleum. Again, not show quality, but it's good enough. Reason why I didn't take the frame off, you can take the whole frame off pretty easy, but you're gonna want a couple people for that. So I didn't feel like dealing with all that. So I just covered the inside of my car with plastic drop cloth, sanded everything down, cleaned everything up, removed the plastic, and then very carefully, without dripping paint all over the inside of my car, I brush painted the frame. So that takes us to now. We're pretty much ready to put the top on. So the first step is we got to get this car outside in the sun. I'll have to move the Mercury, and then we're just going to back this out, park him in the sun, and we're going to stretch the new top across the frame. You just let it sit out there and kind of bake, soften up, loosen up the material. Should make it easier to stretch. So I'm going to shuffle some cars around and we'll be back. All right, and we're back. I'm going to go ahead and get the top out of the box, get that stretched. Okay, we'll walk out and look at this top real quick. So I bought this top from Prestige Auto, and they get pretty good reviews. So felt like it was going to be a pretty decent top. It's just their standard top, except it does have a zip out rear window, which is an extra option. The windows are all covered in paper. It comes packaged that way, which I think is very nice, so you don't have to worry about them getting scratched and scuffed during shipping. Quality is very good on this top. Very impressed with it. I want to show you something on the inside. We talked about attaching this bow right here to the material that hangs down. Well, look at what they've done. So I read where some people said that they were going to use Velcro to attach this, and that seemed like a great idea to me. So that's what I was going to do. Well, they don't say they do this, but Prestige automatically puts Velcro on these. So that's awesome. So I most certainly will be able to attach that with that Velcro strip. And then in the event that I ever do need to remove it, it's easily removable. It's not glued or sewed or anything like that. You see their tag right there. Prestige Auto Trim, made in England, established 1980. They make other interior parts for these cars too. One thing I struggled with a little bit was the lift dot snaps, but the reason why it was giving me a hard time is trying to get this so you can see there's a rubber gasket attached to this top that lays down on the inside, so that was kind of getting in my way when I was trying to snap those snaps. Once I figured out that's what was getting in the way, I flipped it back because it naturally wants to stick out. As soon as I got that rearranged, the snap snapped right down. And the top that I had didn't have anything like that. It was in very bad shape. Maybe it came with it originally, but it definitely didn't have it. In fact, it was also a zip out rear window like this, but it was busted. The zipper was busted when I bought the car, so I actually hog ringed the window back up so that I could have, you know, something to put over my head if it started raining when I was out. This is going to be wonderful to have this zip out window, because if you're in one of these, you know, and it's mid 90s, not a cloud in the sky, you know, noon, 1 o'clock, the sun's right over your head and you're in traffic, it's very hot. So with the zip out rear window, you can put the top up, zip the window out, and still get a nice breeze blowing through. You know, but you don't have that sun beating down on your head. So we've got other things to point out that was missing on my old top, like you've got the straps with the snaps. All of that stuff was either missing in action or didn't come with the top. We've got the snaps here that snap to the window. You've got I think that's going to get glued up under that strip there. But yeah, also black on the inside. This is great. So we're just going to let this sit out in the sun for a while. Let it heat up and soften up a little bit. I'll probably get that paper off of the windows. And then once I think the material is good and hot, we'll go ahead and start trying to stretch and glue. And we're back. So it is a new day. I got preoccupied with some other stuff yesterday and didn't get back to finishing this up. So our next step is to glue the top to the header rail. I will say that you absolutely want to leave this top up and sitting out in the sun like we've done. At any given time yesterday, I could pull the top and stretch it probably 1.5 inches. I did put the car back in the garage overnight, and it got down to about 50 degrees last night. So when I came out this morning and I tried to stretch the top, I almost could not stretch it at all. Now that it's back out in the sun, I can get that 1.5 inches. So that's kind of what I'm going after. Now, if you looked at the write-up that I told you about that I'm loosely following for this install, you're going to notice that I'm not doing things the way they say to do it. And this is where I said in the beginning I was going to make some changes, primarily just because I'm by myself on this. So they tell you to stretch the top tight and then put a mark, a chalk line on the underside of the cover where it meets with the trailing edge of the header rail. Draw a line all the way across, then measure a 1/2 inch back from that line. Draw another line parallel to it, and that is where you want to stretch your top to. And then they're also going to tell you to glue it all the way across. So I really think you need 3 people to do that the right way, because you want everything to be pulled straight and centered, and you're going to need somebody in the car paying attention to how far you're pulling it. So what I'm going to do, the other thing they tell you to do is to fold the top in half, find the center line, and then measure the center of the header rail and keep everything lined up that way. I noticed yesterday the top just naturally, if you grab it in the middle and pull straight down, it lines up good. I really don't think you have to worry about that at all. I did measure the center of the windshield, so I have that piece of tape out there, which we'll go out and kind of look at this now. Bear with me. Okay. So I have a center line on the tape, and then I also measured across the top and got a rough center mark on that, and they do line up really well. If I pull this just straight down from the middle, they line up. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning, remember yesterday we talked about this strip of material that goes around this back bow, and it's velcroed. You don't want to attach that, I don't think, before you stretch your top and glue it to the header rail, because that might prevent you from being able to pull or like pull all the slack out from the back all the way up forward. But what I do think is important is to take that front flap and put it up over that bow. That way it doesn't get caught on the bow itself. So I have that set up that way. And then as far as how tight I pull the top, again, this top was purchased from Prestige, and if I fold this back, you can see there's a line on that top. That was on there when I bought it. If I pull this tight, that line comes down to the edge of the header rail, and if I pull about as tight as I can, I get, you know, a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of extra stretch out of that. So I'm basically just going to pull it as tight as I can, get that 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So I'm just going to measure back off of that line when I put my glue on. Now, the only other thing that I'm going to be doing different is I'm not going to glue it all the way across the whole header rail. I'm going to glue the center section. So I'm going to try to do this in 3 steps. I'm going to glue the center section, then I'm going to glue one side, then I'm going to glue the other side. That way I can stretch it straight down and keep it centered and lined up, stick it, then I can come back and stretch it from side to side. Hopefully I can get even tension and I can keep everything lined up that way, just being on my own. We are also going to be gluing this with weld wood. See if that doesn't really want to show. We're going to be using weld wood contact cement. That is what's recommended. And the directions on this say to apply it on both surfaces that you're going to stick together. and then let it sit for a minimum of 15 minutes, but no longer than 2 hours. So I think it's supposed to set up and be glossy. And then I'm going to stretch that top, and you stick the two surfaces, and it should bond on contact. All right, so I guess we're going to go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to stretch it one last time to get a rough idea of where I need to apply the glue to the top. Then I'm going to fold that back. I'm going to put some glue on the header rail, glue on the top, and let it start tacking up. So we got a small section of glue applied. I measured off the center line, went 10 inches out on that, 5 inches on either side, so 10 inches across. That's going to give me a nice little spot to be able to stick, and hopefully that holds it. And then I can do either side after that. Maybe I should have went a little further. It looks like maybe I should have taken that a little further, but I want to make sure that, you know, I stick this straight, and I need it to be manageable. If I have too much surface area covered, there's a greater chance that that initial stick is gonna be off center or something. So we'll let that set up for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll be back. It's been about 20 minutes. The glue looks shiny. It's got a little bit of tack to it. So I guess we're gonna go ahead and try to stretch this and see if it sticks. Okay, so that did stick really well actually, and I'm not exactly sure why, but you know, I had that top folded back. After bringing it forward and trying to stretch it, you saw me lift it up once and reattach it. My center lines are a little off. They were rough anyways. I do believe that top is shifted a little towards the driver's side. I don't think it's bad enough to matter. But you can see where it's laying flat on the one side, and it's a little bit, you know, it's got that one diagonal line or a wrinkle going across, but I still have to glue the two ends. So as long as I stretch that well enough when I glue it, it seems like I can pull that out. So we'll try to focus in on that so you can see what I'm talking about. See, that very easily pulls flat and lays flat, so I think we'll be good. I think I'm good to go ahead and start applying the other glue. Okay, same as before. Let it set up 15-20 minutes, stretch and stick. I'll go ahead and show you how much of this I'm putting on. So that is about how I'm applying this. And on the top as well. So I'm putting a pretty liberal amount of this contact cement on here. Not necessarily saying that's what you need to do. It might be too much or more than necessary, but I figure too much would be better than not enough. So that's what I'm putting on there, and so far it seems to be working really well. We'll let that one set up, stick them down, and then that part is finished. Then we'll just have to put the retaining strip in, the little box on the end, and the gasket, and trim things, button everything up, and we'll be good to go. On this side, I had to pull it up a couple times. I'm not real happy with this. I think I could have maybe got that stretched a little better. Overall, I'm okay with it. It's My first time ever doing this. Looks pretty good from behind. I do not have that Velcro strap hooked yet. And the top is also not latched. You can see it's pulled a little here too, but I think this side came out better than that side. I don't know if that corner will lay down. Probably loosen up a little. All right, we're back inside the garage. That way we're not working in the heat for the next part. So we did get everything glued down to the header. Turned out pretty good. The top is still not latched, so that could pull it a little bit. I have this going on, and I see that on a lot of these tops. Very, any brand. It's not indicative of the brand. It's install error, I believe. So where I said that we pulled that top a little crooked when I initially stuck it down, you can see the center marks there are slightly off, and I think that's what's causing that little bit of wrinkle. There's a little one there, a little dip there. This side actually looks better than that other side, I think, because there's more material on that side, so it's bunched a little more. Because this, I can actually see the edge of my header, where I think the other side I cannot. Maybe I can. No, I think that's gonna, yeah, see, that's hanging over. So that's, I mean, we're off 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, something like that. First time install, I'm not gonna complain. I bought the top on sale for about $330, I think. You can see up top here, that all came out really good. Everything fastens. These inside snaps in here, I currently have snap to help hold this material. Overall, I'm pleased with it. So I'm gonna try to get this camera set up different so that I can film the next part, is I have to lift the top up, lift the header rail up off the window, and then we need to start putting that, well, we need to fold the material over, glue it to the inside of the header rail, put the retaining clip on, put the gasket in, trim everything up, and we're finished. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is fold this excess material over the lip, and that's going to get glued all the way across. So you're going to glue it over that edge and then down over your screw holes right there. You're going to do that all the way across. Once we get that glued down, we'll trim off the excess material, and then we have to put the strip, the aluminum retaining strip down, gasket, pretty much be finished. So just like last time, we're going to put contact cement on both surfaces. We're going to let them set up for 15-20 minutes. And then we're going to wrap it around, put pressure on it, and it should tack right down. this is actually really difficult to know where your holes are going to be at so that you can screw that strip on. So that's what I'm struggling with right now, is I want to try to pre-punch the holes. I guess when in doubt, get a bigger hammer, right? I have a punch, but I don't think it's going to be small enough. I mean, what if I just trim that? That's what I'm thinking. Because those screw holes are down far enough to where maybe I can just trim around it. Put a slit. That's actually a good idea. Instead of trying to punch all the holes, I'm thinking about doing. It would also be a lot easier to bring this top all the way down, probably. But I didn't want to. I would just say because of laziness, really the lack of a better reason. So, paying for that now, which is somewhat okay. I think we got this licked. Okay, that took forever. Let me get you down in here so you can see what we got. So I wrapped everything around, and I was really concerned about how I was going to be able to line these holes up. So then I decided that I was just going to cut out around them. So I just did these little triangle cuts. The end hole is right up in there. I think I'll be able to find that. But then all the rest of the way down, I just have those cuts. And that also somewhat served as relief cuts. Now, I kind of messed this corner up a little bit. Remember, we were a little off center, so I had a little extra material over here. So instead of just folding it around like I did over there, which I'll show you, I folded the corner over, cut it, put a relief cut, and then folded down. Well, that little relief cut is all the way up on the edge there, so I don't like that. but I can't go back in time, so I've got some extra glue down in here that I'm kind of letting set up, and then I'm going to try to just work that in as best I can. I think it'll be okay, mainly because it has to be. Then over here you can see there is no relief cut. I just folded that straight over, and that's what you should do. And I could have done that on the other side. It's just the first corner that I did, and I didn't really think through that. So I got my little block back on this side. I'm waiting on the other side for the glue to set a little bit. I've also put that screw in. That screw wasn't even installed with the old top, but I went ahead and put a screw in there with a cup washer. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So then we've just got to put the strip on and put the gasket in. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, so we're all done. I didn't communicate a whole lot while I was working on this, but it's all pretty straightforward stuff. Buttoning up that leading edge of the header rail. So I was just kind of fighting with screws, getting everything finished up. So it didn't turn out too bad. Remember, I used screws instead of rivets for that retaining strip. So what that did, as far as cause problems, is the screw heads stick out a little bit, which doesn't let you slide the rubber gasket. So I had to work it in with a screwdriver or a pry tool. And I started it right at the edge of the aluminum strip. I should have let it hang over because you can see there's a little gap right there. So that'll probably have to be pulled out and brought over just a little bit. And since that's the case, when I cut it off, because they make them too long, so when I cut it off with a little extra. So that'll have to be reworked. You know, I don't have the inside snapped right now, because if I do that, it kind of pulls it, gives it a weird wrinkle. I'm sure that's because we were just a little off center. You can see the little bit of wrinkle there. And some of that might iron out as it kind of stretches and lays down. I plan on just leaving this top up on this car and driving it with the top up for a good long while. I might zip the window out and try that, mainly just because I'm eager. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. All right, well, I appreciate you watching. And if this did help you out, do me a favor and like the video, maybe even subscribe. I know I don't have much in the way of content right now, but we're going to keep working on that. Thanks.